Today, the Church remembers and gives thanks for two people, Philip and James. We hear a little about both of them early on in the Gospel stories. James was a fisherman, a business partner of Simon's, and present at that amazing catch of fish when Jesus had suggested they put their nets out again, having already worked through the night. Philip was simply called by Jesus to follow him, and then quickly brings Nathanael to him, explaining that Jesus is the one the prophets had spoken about. James and Philip both leave behind their former lives and are soon appointed as apostles. So let's think for a few minutes about what it means to leave behind our lives and follow Jesus. After all, we say this quite often, don't we? We are followers too, like the early disciples. We're pilgrims, we journey with Jesus. But there are several ways of describing what following means. Physically, as James and Philip did, or perhaps spiritually, as many of us would describe ourselves as doing. The impact of following Jesus for us on a day-to-day basis isn't perhaps as physically dramatic as it was for James and Philip, because most of us as Christians these days tend to stay where we are. We don't have to go anywhere really to call ourselves a follower of Jesus, other than usually to our parish church on a Sunday. A lot of being a Christian can actually be done from our armchairs if we so wished. But there was also an immense spiritual impact for James and Philip. It's all too easy, I think, to romanticize what they did. It was brave, it was sacrificial, it makes for a really good story which we tell and retell, especially when we explain to children about the way Jesus called his earliest disciples. We often stop short of the spiritual impact and the effect that had on their lives and work. At this moment in time, during this period of lockdown, it would be very easy to say that we can't do a lot about following Jesus in the way that James and Philip had done. We can't go anywhere, so we can't do much. Is the calling on our lives somehow lessened by the current limitations? I think not at all. But if we chose to, we could almost use this as an excuse for taking a bit of a back seat in our walk with Jesus. Are we getting a little bit stuck in our spiritual life and allowing everything to remain just as it is until this time of lockdown is over? Well, one of the things we know about Philip is that very soon after he discovered Jesus for himself, he went and found his friend Nathanael and brought him to Jesus too. And he didn't waste any time in doing so. It was all rather quick, as was Philip's recognition that Jesus was the one whom the prophets had spoken about. Whilst we're not having our usual ways of contact with other people, are there some creative ways in which we can reach out to others and introduce them to Jesus? This is probably an uncomfortable aspect of what it means to follow Jesus, but the pattern of apostleship is there right from the start, having a heart for bringing others into the fold and being willing to be sent to others, not physically at the moment, but via the many other means that we do have, our phones, the internet, and one of my favourites, letter writing, although my children tell me I'm stuck in the dark ages with that one. We're not stuck in our faith because we can't go anywhere, but rather this period of time presents us with new and different ways of connecting with others, as well as new opportunities to follow Jesus personally. Many of us have slowed down our pace of life, not being able to physically rush around as we've become so accustomed to doing in the past. Let's use this time then to reflect and to evaluate not just our own spiritual well-being from the comfort of our homes, but how we can also mirror our lives on James and Philip, apostles, bringing messages of hope and encouragement about following Jesus to our friends and neighbours.